It's the championship.
Yeah, and I know it is, but like this is the in-season tournament championship.
Yeah, and who cares about that? Since we last spoke, you are and have been a huge proponent of the in-season tournament. We saw it with the with those new courts, which gathered a lot of conversation. Some thought the new courts were cool. Some thought the new courts were very distracting. Some had no idea what the hell was going on and why the courts looked that way. But at least for that first night, the basketball games, like, I do think they got very lucky in that the competition level and the slate of games turned out to be extremely good. I don't necessarily think that's because it was for something or because it was the in-season tournament. But, you know, I do think that you go out on the court, and even if you're a player, psychologically, it does feel different just because you can't help but notice this isn't your average night when the court looks so crazy. And it's going to take a little getting used to on that, but I do think that if conversation was what they were looking for, they certainly got it.
I felt it as a fan that the games had elevated meaning or a different type of meaning. Whether it was because the court's differentiating it from the normal games, or like you said, we got fortunate with a lot of close games. Like there's, you know, an overtime game to end the night for your Grizzlies and the Blazers, the thriller with the Warriors and the Thunder, with the call at the end that was a controversy. The like Nets and Bulls was
that's
close.
when you really knew it mattered more. Is when they gave the Warriors that win. Felt just like the playoffs.
But I felt like all these games were intense. Maybe because they were close, and Friday there could be some blowouts and we'll feel differently, but that's no different than the playoffs. I just, like, for me, from my perspective as a fan, I was having like more fun than I usually do, having multiple screens open, keeping tabs on multiple games. And it makes me even more excited for this Friday night with some of the matchups that are coming. It makes me more excited for next Tuesday and Friday. And I hope game by game it keeps building as we get closer to that fourth and fifth group play game where the teams are actually feeling the pressure to play in for one of the spots and the quarterfinals and then a spot in Vegas. I would hope it keeps building week by week, but first impressions are great. I loved it. I loved it. I was listening to Sunday's Ringer NBA show group chat. Chris Ryan was a special guest with Rob Mahoney and Justin Verrier. Waz was out. He's normally on that show. And Chris Ryan is like a huge soccer fan. He's followed soccer, you know, as long as I've known him, probably far longer than that. And Chris has watched these competitions overseas with, you know, soccer clubs playing in this cup and that cup, and how teams sometimes string together different championships and different cups. Some teams are known for success in certain cups, but not in others, and all that. And it builds over the course of time. And they were just talking about how, like, this is an opportunity for some of these young teams to carve out something, or for Denver, a team that just won the NBA Finals, to then win this. It's like, oh, okay, they're continuing their dominance, and then they do it through the regular season. It's just like it's another marker of success in games that are on that are elevated. And I'm happy the NBA is doing it. Granted, I wish the NBA went further. I wish they carved out like a 2-week chunk of the schedule and said these are all tournament games. We're focusing entirely on the tournament. Everybody's in. I wish they did that rather than going from tournament games to normal regular season games and all that. But that one step at a time, I suppose. And maybe if this continues to be a success, they'll build towards something like that. But first impressions, very, very strong. Do you feel the same way, Chris? Because I've always been, you know, pro in-season tournament, pro play-in. You've been more like, open to it.
I just want to see it. Look, I've never been against it simply because there's no reason to be against it. People are not, their attention is not towards when it's November 6th, November 7th, November 10th. Like, that's not when people's attention is turned towards the NBA yet. That really doesn't happen. Like, in many cases, the casual fan is going to really start paying attention when it gets to around Christmas time. And that Christmas Day is such a huge center stage day, even though they kind of lost that now because the NFL's having Christmas Day games. I do think that it is something that, as I've said, I think that for the fans, I am of the opinion that they need to add something for the fans, something for me as a fan to care that my team wins that or is successful in that, beyond just the team is going out to Vegas, the team has a chance at this mid-season cup, which frankly means nothing.
But what do you get for winning the finals?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I want. I want something like the players get what, $500,000 a piece.
Yeah, but what do you get for winning the finals besides winning the finals?
It's the championship.
Yeah, and I know it is, but like this is the in-season tournament championship.
Yeah, and who cares about that? Why should I care if they win the in-season?
Because you care over the course of time, like we've talked about.
I've got to win 4 playoff series to win the finals.
I know. Yes, that means more, but that doesn't.
What
mean,
are you trying to compare this to the NBA finals?
No, I'm saying, but that doesn't mean that this means nothing.
Okay, just tell me why it means something.
It's the meaning that you put on it. It's a single elimination tournament. It's a marker of this stage of the season for who is the most successful team. And like, yeah, I give them guaranteed play-in spot or give them the 31st pick in the draft. Sure, but like I'm happy that the league is starting out with nothing for the reward and that from the team side, and just simply sticking to the financial reward for players, because then you can change it from here. If you do feel like there's timid interest, if ratings aren't elevated for those games in Vegas, if seats aren't filled for those games in Vegas, or whatever metric you want to use to assess the situation, then yeah, sure, you can add on top of it. But I think for year one, I'm perfectly fine with keeping it as is, making it strictly about basketball, and seeing what the response is. That's my feeling on it. And then if it turns out that people are like, who cares? Then add something. But
I think
for
if my
now,
team won it,
nothing.
If my team won it, I'd go, cool. My team won it. Like, and that would be the end of that.
Yeah,
right?
but like,
I'm glad those guys got $500,000.
But if those games in Vegas are highly competitive, where starters are playing 40 plus minutes, there's an 8-man rotation, and you're seeing these teams resemble what they would look like in the postseason. Normally, I would say games in October, November, December, January, even February for that matter, sometimes have zilch meaning when it comes to assessing the playoffs. I know you're not, but I'm just saying, don't those games, if those teams are doing that, doesn't that offer something in terms of if the teams are putting their best out there, if they're game planning heavily for that semifinal game, for that finals game, and they're doing that shortened rotation, I think that gives it inherently more meaning. And from from our perspective on the outside, assessing those teams, it does have some more increased value for assessing what that team might do come April, May, June.
I would laugh my ass off if guys rested.
I don't think they're gonna.
It'd be the most NBA thing ever.
I don't think they're gonna.
Guys just say, it's too many games in 2. I'll play the first one, but I can't play the second one.
That would be horrible. That would be the worst thing if that happened. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it would be the worst thing if that happened. And also, it would be really dumb if players and teams were to do that. It's really short-sighted, because this is the in-season tournament is something that the NBA will want to sell as a package to Amazon, Apple,
sure,
or one of the networks. Like, hey, you get here's how we're going to evolve this. You do 3 weeks in-season tournament all on NBC, right? Like that type of thing.
I would love to see a single elimination like that includes a bunch of teams. Yes,
I agree, and I think that's what the NBA will build towards.
That'd be great.
When the NBA expands to 32 teams and 26 or 27 with Vegas and Seattle, I think you'll see single elimination involving all 32 teams at that point, and that would be dope. So I think that's why I'm not like overreacting to some of the things right now in terms of, hey, I wish they did this or I wish they did that. I wish they went all in with this. I think from the political standpoint within the league office and how they have to operate with all 30 teams, yes, you could say Adam Silver needs to be a tougher owner and demand everything that he desires with this tournament. But I'm not so sure how realistic that is. And part of it is they do have to take these baby steps towards making it a full-fledged 32-team tournament or whatever shape it takes. And I hope that's what it eventually moves towards. And I think it will.
Did you like the courts?
I do like the courts. I think they differentiate it from the normal courts like they get on my other monitors right now. It's like, it's a basic, typical court. That made it feel like something different. It was cool. It looks better in the arena than it did just seeing the court itself, the images of it that were posted online.